work is such an important expression of who you are, or it can be, and your days are so filled with it. So why wouldn't you seek joy and happiness in it, is sort of my feeling. And if you're not feeling joy and that sort of contentment, then there's potentially a disconnect, or there's potentially opportunity for you to shift what you're doing or how you're doing it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining in. I'm Kiva from Cocharya, and as always, really nice to have you all here today with us for a webinar, Impact of Coaching. And we have with us our lovely guest, Paula. Before I welcome her and ask her to introduce herself and share a little about herself, it would be great to hear from you all on where you're joining in from. So please feel free to use the chat box, say a little hi, let us know where you're joining in from and what are you excited about in today's session, which is on cultivating happiness and joy in professional work. So look forward to hearing from you all. Please feel free to use the chat box here. Till you all are joining in and getting comfortable, I would also like to just let everybody know that today we sent an email out, and you must have received an email with our upcoming courses as well at Cocharya. So we have an advanced executive course coming up next week with Cindy, and we have a bunch of foundation courses lined up for May. So if you have any queries, do write to us at contact@cocharya.com. And hi, Raghuraman. Nice to have you here. Hi, Yamini. Love the topic. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that comment.
We love the topic as well. I think just before we started, Paul and I were just talking about how this topic is so refreshing and fun, and it's nice to bring this to you all. So Paula, till everybody's joining in, would you like to share a little with us about yourself, about what you're doing currently, a little maybe about how you got into the coaching space?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm currently, I own a coaching business called PDW Coaching. My name is Paula D Rita Wishart, so I just named it after myself. And my work is working with executive level professionals, and that can be like advanced mid-career to C-suite, who are in transitioning in their work. And so the transitioning in their work could be transitioning to a new role, or it could be just, I'm really in a space and I want to be in a different space. So my work really is, my catch line is always connect who you are with what you do. And it's important to me, and I've done that across my entire career, to really work with individuals in my coaching practice. But as I grew as a leader, and I'll talk a little bit about my career before being a coach, but as I grew as a leader, to really help my team really bring themselves to work. And so I really work with clients who are interested in finding more joy and abundance and harmony in their work, and they want to show up for their leadership position in a way that brings themselves to that work. So that's what I do, and it will depend on who I'm working with, how that manifests. Before becoming a coach, I worked at the University of Michigan, which is here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the United States. I did that for about 32 years. I went in and out in industry too, but mostly at the university. And I started out actually as a coach in career development at the university, and then moved up in progressive leadership roles until I was starting career initiatives on the university campus as a director, and became eventually assistant dean, developing those initiatives. And while I was doing that, I was always in that kind of role where people would stop in to ask me to, I'm sure a lot of coaches will say this. People always came into your office to say, hey, can you help me think through this? Or I want your opinion on this, from people who worked for me, with me, or leaders on campus who just saw me as someone in that role. And it just became clear to me over time, and that I really needed to think about that work more central to what I was doing, because it really is what I loved. And lucky for me, one of my friends had gone through Cocharya, and she was here in the United States. And she said to me, I think you'll like this program a lot, because it's where East meets West. And I've been a lifelong meditator and really interested in presence And there was a Cocharia class on ontology and the ontological approach to coaching. And it was, the foundations of coaching, but from that perspective. And so I thought that would be a great thing. This was during the pandemic to really boost my joy. I mean, during the pandemic, I was running a big team, but I was home while I was doing that. And so I just was looking for something to really reconnect to the profession in a way that had meaning for me. And my background was in counseling. My master's in counseling and higher education. So I thought this will really enhance that. And as I started to go through the course and get deeper into the work, I just realized this is the work I really need to do. This is really what I have to do. And I had a great job. It was a really exciting work at the university. And I was into my recent leadership role about 5 years. And I was like, yeah, it's time for me to do something that I really love every day. I mean, I preach this. It's time for me to really think about it. So I made the pivot. And I remember saying to my husband, who was super supportive of it, okay, I'm leaving this great job. You seem really supportive of it. Is there anything that concerns you? And he said, I'm not concerned you're not doing the right work. He said, this is the right job for you. I can see that connecting with people matters to you. He also said, and I'm not concerned that you won't be able to build your business. I've seen you hustle your whole career. He said, I'm concerned that you stay connected to your people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because he just said, I think that community matters to you a lot. And will you lose that having your own business? But what he was certain and what I was certain of was that the thing I really needed to do was at an individual level. I was building organizations, making administrative decisions at a leadership level and problem solving always at that level every day. And my kind of meaningful problem solving really was at that individual level. Where I got joy was when I was connecting with another human. And at the end of the day, if one person said to me, you helped, you supported me in some way, then that felt like it was a good day. Or I could have done big organizational things and that just didn't feel as connected to me. So I started my coaching business about 1.5 years ago and have never looked back. And I'll stop there because I could go on and on about my story because it's been a good years.
No, that's amazing because I think those are the stories that I'm sure the participants are also eager to hear about. So it was so amazing to notice right now that every time you spoke about coaching and the change that it can create at an individual level to then, like, let's say an organizational level, at a systemic level, it shifts something inside you. I could literally feel it. So can you describe that a little for us? Like what goes on inside Paula when she thinks about coaching or is with her clients?
Gosh, just you talking about that, like just shifting something in me. So thank you. Yeah, that's a very true thing. It does shift something in me. It connects me to something that's very meaningful and personal to me. Like I always say, work is about problem solving. And if we're solving problems at the right level with the right people or things, and in the right kind of problems, then we feel at ease, at sort of center. And so that's how I feel. I think it feels like such a natural part of who I am to do this kind of work. It's expressing the skills I bring, the interests, the values I have. So yeah, so coaching just it's the right fit. And I think after a long career of jobs that I loved, I've landed in a place that feels so congruent with who I am. So that's probably what you're seeing is just a real sense of peace and ownership of the work.
So this is making me really curious, Paula, because I'm just thinking that you have this kind of clarity, right? Where you know that you enjoy problem solving, that you're somebody who would want to be in that space and contribute in that space. For someone who's still exploring who they are or what is it that brings that value in them in a professional setting, what could joy or happiness mean for them?
Yeah, it's interesting you'd ask that question because it's what I work with every day with my clients is sort of figuring out how they want to express themselves and find work to be more congruent with who they are. And so, I think happiness and joy. So in some ways we had a real important time where everyone's like, everyone needs to be happy and joyful. And now people are like, well, that you should go for more than that. And I feel like I'm thinking of from this completely sense of contentment and abundance and the sense of where you feel you're in a space that is core to who you are, and you feel that sort of sense of joy and love, even with things going on around you that aren't always perfect and positive, and it's not all about, feeling like everything is perfect. It's really just about feeling like you get up in the morning, you have energy to do what you want to do, and you feel like at the end of the day, even if you're tired, what you did was worthwhile. That just deep sense of connecting who you are with what you do. And work is really, it's what we do so much of our life. I was working with a young person recently who's not as a coach, but just they were talking to me and they said, gosh, work is, and I've been working for few years after college. They said, work is just so all the time. I just laughed at that because I was thinking, like, when you start work, you don't realize it is, it's an all the time thing. And my clients all are professionals. Like I don't work with clients on life coaching, which is also very important, but I do work with them life coaching around their work. So I guess my feeling is that work is such an important expression of who you are, or it can be, and your days are so filled with it. So why wouldn't you seek joy and happiness in it, is sort of my feeling. And if you're not feeling joy and that sort of contentment, then there's potentially a disconnect, or there's potentially opportunity for you to shift what you're doing or how you're doing it. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Kiva, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah, no, that's very, very interesting and true, right? We spend majority of our time working, and then if you aren't really happy in that space, then that's something to think about. So, Paula, why coaching? Like, why coaching as a tool to build this out in people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not for everyone, but I do feel like the ability to have a sense of yourself and reflect on that, create a space where you can do that is, where you want to be. I mean, I'm a big proponent of, therapy and counseling, and I see coaching as a part of that genre, in the sense that it's the ability to self-reflect on yourself, on your life and who you are. What I love about coaching that's different than therapy or counseling, and might be what someone needs, but when someone's goal oriented, so that's what I love about coaching is, and my coaching practice, though we focus on joy and happiness and who you are, is very grounded in where you want to be. I mean, that's what coaching is. And so it's a fun process for saying, here's who I am. I recognize who I am. I might even celebrate who I am. And here's where I want to be. And what's that gap? That classic grow model, what are my options and what's my will to act? Is coaching is just such a fun process for getting a deep sense of who you are and thinking aspirationally about who you could be. And so as a coach, to be a part of that process, I mean, just saying that actually kind of gives me goosebumps, that when you're with someone who's feeling like they could be more or connect better to who they want to be, and you could be you invited into that process to help partner with them in that, what a cool job. I mean, so it just for me feels like if that's what you want to do, that's what coaching is about, and a good coach can do with you.
Yeah, I think I resonate with a lot of that. And you feel good, when a person has that aha moment that, oh yeah, this is what I've been looking for,
Yeah.
and I have the tools, and I have it within me to actually make this a reality for myself. So completely resonate with that, Paula. And Paula, so I'm curious to know, when you were setting up your own coaching business, right? Like, I know it's the larger vision makes complete sense, but it's never easy to start and then to stay on that road, right? Like you said, it's been over a year for you. You are still on that road of setting certain things up, and it must be very challenging for you at the moment as well, maybe in some ways. Could you share a little about, like, as a person who started off your own business, what were some of the challenges, like very, very honest challenges that have come up for you?
Yeah, so the coaching, the work is really interesting to me. And even when I'm not feeling like I've done my best coaching day, it's exciting to me to think about how I could improve. Like I love that even the coach training is the idea of really reviewing your video and saying, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And so I feel very connected to the practice of coaching, and that has its challenges in it, in terms of being becoming better, being mentored, being supervised, and taking, getting certified and all that. But to me, those challenges feel very, I'm naturally drawn to them. The other challenges that that are less natural for me is the what I call on the business work. So there's working in the business, which is coaching, and there's working on the business. And I have on my wall, I have sort of in the business and on the business goals and strategies. So it was really getting my head around what's the structure for my business. I mean, for years, someone else set up my business for me. And then even when I was a assistant dean, I had an executive assistant who did a lot of the on the business stuff, like the accounting, the structure, the tracking things, the switching my meetings around. So that part of getting myself organized is probably the ongoing challenge. Though, I'm saying this, I feel like I should have wrote a book when I started, because it doesn't feel painfully challenging. It just feels less natural to me. So when I started my business, I was a little bit nervous about putting myself out there, because I'm not like, I don't post all the time. I don't do that kind of stuff. So I had developed a website, and I remember, I mean, things just happened serendipitously in some ways. I was talking to my hairstylist who was like, I'm like, I can't find someone to build my web. I'm trying to do it myself and I stink at this. She says, oh, you'll love my web guy. And he ended up to be this really effective, thoughtful person who in his own way was kind of a coach to me. He was very quiet and encouraging me to really push on my ideas and present who I am on my website in a genuine way. And I thought, oh, the website's not a big deal. It's just kind of like a calling card. So I didn't put it out there. And he said to me, why aren't you putting your website out there? And so it was like just those little things where I was like, I need to think about, I can't just say I want to coach. I have to think very consciously about how I want to do this. So when I posted my website and I started getting a lot of responses from the community that I belong to, that was exciting. But what I hadn't, again, now it's in order, but at that time I hadn't put together the structure as much as I wanted to in terms of how I track clients and where they go and things like that. So that kind of stuff presents its challenges, where you have to start thinking about what do you need now at the size you are and what are you going to need in the future as you grow your business. So at the beginning of this year, like I used Excel for everything, and I'm pretty organized in Excel. It took me a while because I used to have someone who helped me a lot with that. Once I got everything organized, I realized this Excel system is going to get pretty crazy after a while, because I'm going to have so many things. So I had to switch to I use QuickBooks, and like those sort of transitions where there's like a pain process of switching everything over. I think I probably could have thought about that a little bit more in the beginning, but it wasn't as interesting to me. So yeah, I mean, those are the sort of bumps in the road are things that are in my business. But because I love my work so much, I think the in the business things present like they're kind of connected to the love of my work. So I'm just not as good at them.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because a lot of times when people also get into the space, they're passionate about coaching or they're passionate about doing something on their own. But there are these other things that come in probably which aren't your very clear strengths or don't become a priority right at the start, but need to be a priority, right? And I think you mentioned having a resource person or even a connect that helped you. So what role do you think a community or what kind of resources do you think are important for person who's starting off on their own business based on your experience?
Yeah, for me, because I'm a fairly extroverted person, it was important for me to have colleagues. Clients aren't colleagues, we know that. And so like though I'm an extroverted now, I might see it in the course of a week, a number of colleagues in person and on Zoom, because I do both. It doesn't have the same sort of commitment to me, or it doesn't have the same feel to me as colleagues did. And that's what my husband said he was worried about. He said, I'm so afraid you're going to lose connection to all these people who matter to you, which I thought was a good point. So what I started to do was think about who do I need, who are my colleagues and how do I stay connected with them? One easy group was my Cocharia cohort. I just had an amazing group of friends out of that group who I stayed, and we started doing practice coaching together, and then we moved into just really thinking through almost as peer supervisors to each other. So that existed, but then I had to really think about who else do I need to connect with. And so I looked at my calendar, decided to make Wednesdays what I called my meet and greet day. So I would put meetings on that day where I was connecting to colleagues. So I would reach out to friends I hadn't seen in a while in the Ann Arbor community who were still working at the university and say, hey, can we get together for coffee? or I would reach out to a coach or that I thought was interesting that I hadn't a chance to talk to. The other thing I did was every coaching group I was in, and there are a number of them, and we can talk about them, like how I like I do coaching at the university's School of Public Policy and a leadership group, and there's 20 of the coaches. Only 4 of us are local. Everyone else is all over the world. So I made it a point to reach out to most people in that group and say, could we talk and do a half hour or hour chat? So I could build this sort of sense of who would be a part of my community. And I would say for the first year, it was pretty organic. Like I just enjoyed the ability to talk about coaching and talk to people. And over time, I realized I've got to get a little more strategic about this, because some of the people it was more productive than others to meet with. And it's sort of just like work. Like if I'm going to, so I started facilitating a coach sharing group in the Ford School of Public Policy at the university that I work with, so that I could actually facilitate that group, meet a lot of people, do some interesting things. We basically do like a mind master group and bring in coaching questions and work on them together. And so I started to create more what you might imagine like a work setting. So for me, I had to create that. The other thing I did was I realized my clients were really dictating my week, what it looked like. And so I decided to sort of get in front of that a little bit and think about, I'm looking at my wall over here because it's on my wall. What are the areas I want my life to develop in, from my family to my husband to my health? I'm a pretty health focused, my family, my extended family. And where does that fit on my calendar? So then I started to block out times for when I thought this is client time. This is, this is meeting time with like the Wednesday meet and greet. This is time for working out. This is time for visiting my mother, so that my schedule could really become a rhythm of my life, as I work with my clients to do, and not just be whoever's popping up on it, which was something I actually hated about my last job. I would have 10 or 11 meetings. I see someone floating a heart up on that. I hope other people are doing that. I would have people putting all these meetings on my schedule, as assistant dean, and I would end up in meetings that I didn't even think I needed to be in. So I really took charge of my own life and said, how do I want my schedule to represent my values and the goals I have in life?
That's wonderful, Paula, because what I'm hearing is knowing what you require professionally and knowing what you require personally, both in a way helped you, or right now also helping you to build that happiness and that joy in your life, right? So one aspect of it is the core work, which is coaching and how that fuels you. But there are times when there could be other aspects, right, related to that broader structure, which can pull a person down. And I think many a times those come in the way and could actually, destroy our happiness or joy or reduce it. So I'm really curious to actually hear from our participants on, we saw a lot of reactions coming in when you were sharing these things with everybody. So what are certain things that you think are important to you that bring out your joy and happiness at work? Would love to just hear from everyone on what they are thinking. What is important to you in order to bring the happiness and joy that you think you should have at work?
Yeah. The other way I might even frame that, Kiva, if I might, is when I'm working with clients, is what are things that you just dread, and how, what are things that you wish weren't a part of that, to think about how could you replace that? Because that's what I started to feel like I missed. I loved I like structure. So I love the structure of my work.
Yeah.
And so I said, how can I create structure, but how can I do it without the dread of meeting after meeting after meeting? And so it's sort of 2 ways to think about it.
That's very interesting. Any thoughts from anyone? What are things that you probably require, or things, like Paula said, that you might need, but probably you don't have them right now, that will make you happy? I think for me, I was just thinking as you were sharing, structure definitely is again one for me. And in structure, like enough thinking time, because I feel when that thinking time kind of gets lost, it's like, you just go into that zone and you're just like completing tasks one after another. And then you realize that, oh, what is it that I'm working towards, right? So I think some kind of a structure where there is enough thinking time and time to reflect is something that I really, really value. And I think definitely like when you have like a good team, people who you can connect with, I think it inspires you as well to do better. So we have Kanan here, structure, collaboration, feedback. That's interesting, feedback. Raghu Raman said, I've coached more than 60 people in the last 6 years. My best moments were when I see my clients attain clarity through my questions. Brilliant.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love all these things. They're making me happy. I love freedom to do what you like. I think freedom is one of my core values. And this is my core value. So it really matches what was presented there. Freedom to do what we love and the way we like to do it is one of my core values within my business.
That just sounds so liberating.
It
Just as
is
I
so
heard you say
liberating.
it.
Yeah, and that real collaboration. Like I just feel like, and when I work with clients, I mean, one of big chunk of my clients are academic surgeons at universities. So they run clinics, they have major research projects going on. They might like be running cancer units. They're chairs on committee. They've these ridiculous jobs. And so always when I'm working with them, it's this sort of, there's no way I can have the structure I want or the freedom to do what I like. And you really have way more choice. I mean, that's what coaching is all about, is really slowing things down so people can see their own agency and choice in the world. And so I really do believe, these are all my values: happiness and joy in our professional life every day. You should feel that every day in your work. Freedom to do what we love and the way we like to do it. Harmony between ourselves and our work, abundance and growth are central to our professional life. If you approach work in that way, it shifts who you are. And I think starting my own coaching business, and I know people who are thinking about that, is enabled me to say, oh, anytime I feel like, oh, I don't want to do that, I think you have complete freedom. Your boss is in complete alignment with who you are. I am my boss. And so if today I want to work somewhere else, or I want to switch my schedule in this way, these are the kind of clients I want to work with, all within my control. So yeah, anyway, so freedom, clearly. Yeah, harmony is where I think, people, joy and happiness means different things to different people. Harmony, and, we all do different types of assessments of who we are. Harmony is so central to who I am. So that's how I define joy and happiness.
And when you think of harmony, like, what are some words that come to your mind associated with harmony? And even for the audience, would love to hear from you all also, words that come to you.
Someone said they're at peace.
At peace.
Anita, yeah, I love that, at peace. It is. It's a quietness sometimes for me. Fulfillment. I love that word. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you asked that question, even like, what does that mean to you? Because one of the value exercises, rhythm. Ooh, I love these words that are popping up. They're making my day. Peace of mind and heart. Music. Alignment of mind and body. Oh yeah. Acceptance. It's so funny to say alignment of mind and body, because I work with clients all the time who will, we do that. You did that with me. Like, I sense this energy shift. It's amazing to me how we can do that over the distance and just looking at each other, that our body says so much about our sense of harmony. Acceptance. Oh, acceptance, remaining calm and joyful. These are beautiful. We had to save this chat. What was I just saying? Something about, I don't remember. I'm just taken with everyone's words. Being at peace with oneself. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, sorry, Paula.
No, I was just gonna say the values. I asked people to do a value exercise, some part of the process. And I'm fairly organic on my process when it seems like the right time, but values always comes up. And it's not just pick your value words. We come up with value statements, we prioritize them. Because I think just what you asked, harmony, like if I just said happiness, joy, freedom, harmony, abundance, and growth are my values, it made a difference for me to say freedom to do what we love and the way we like to do it. That's how I define freedom. Freedom for everyone is going to be different. So anyway, thinking about what values mean, they're not just a word, they're sort of they're in a context.
Yeah. I think George has also put something very interesting, aligning purpose and potential. And I think in
Yeah.
many ways, that's what coaching brings to you, right? Like, what is your purpose? And then not just leaving it there, but helping you to identify the potential also that lies inside you. So very beautifully shared. Also,
Oh, I'm writing it down.
yeah.
I love it. I'm writing it down because I think that is actually, that's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
thing. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I've interrupted you twice.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I was just thinking about the word abundance. And when you said abundance, the first abundance and growth, I think you said. So the first thing that came to my mind was how it's in so many places as individuals, we can sometimes operate with a lack mindset, which is, oh, but how will I figure this out? Or how will I do this? Or do I have enough of this? And a lot of these doubts and fears and questions that kind of come in the way of you being able to achieve what you want to achieve. So can you share a little about what abundance means to you and how it's been a part of your coaching journey so far?
Yeah, so you just put that beautifully, that lacking mindset. I always call it asset deficit thinking. So
Mm,
some people think in the deficit. And it's sometimes just the way people are. I actually worked with someone one time, I think, who found me completely annoying because they really were a very analytical person who looked at deficit very much as an important one of the things we work on is people who have a preventative mindset or promotional mindset. And this sort of preventative, like preventing injury, preventing bad things from happening. Sometimes people sit in that space where fear is a really important component of how they think about things. And we all deal with fear, and I think of fear, abundant mindset would look at fear as an opportunity to have a conversation. So like, and I'm not the first one to think of this, but like when fear pops up for me now, I really think, okay, I feel you. I see you. What are you trying to talk to me about? Is this still important for me? Like abundance is that sort of sense of not for me is this sort of, there's just opportunity and growth and and I definitely have an optimistic perspective in the sense that things will work out, but I'm a practical optimist because I've had this shift and change in my career path and I've had things happen that haven't been good or happy. It's not all about being happy, but it's looking at that asset
yeah.
perspective, that there's an opportunity to grow, there is potential, and that aligning purpose with potential sort of unlocks that for people because they're often in this space where there's lots of potential, but it doesn't align with their purpose or it doesn't have meaning for them. And when you don't have that, potential and opportunity doesn't look like anything. Like when you see it as potential, when you see it as opportunity, then, so it's really connecting who you are with what you do or what you can do. So I
Yeah.
think of abundance as just really thinking that there's just an asset promotional mindset on what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to think and go back to some of the coaching conversations that I have had where I've heard a lot of times, like when you try to explore what are the kind of resources around you that you can leverage. I think for a moment, everybody gets stuck, right? Because it looks like, oh, but there is, I don't know, maybe I could reach out to a friend, maybe. But I think a lot of times it's those, it doesn't even have to be big acts, but it's like that tiny support that can lead to something bigger. Like in your case, when you spoke to your hairstylist
Yeah,
about the website, it's
I was just thinking about that when you said that we're like in the same spot. Yes,
yeah,
I was sitting there and I had thought, I'm never gonna get this website done. I don't know how to do it. I don't like to do this kind of stuff. And I was thinking that I was being kind of cheesy with the things I was talking about on my website because I was in this abundance, hope, happiness space. And everyone else is sort of driven success. And I'm an executive career coach. Like, is that the right language? And so she said, talk to my guy, and he was so different from me, very low key, very not a super, emotive person, but super supportive in like an unsurprising space for your web designer to say, I think you've really, because I did a lot of written work before I met with him. He said, I think you've really done a lot of important work. And he said, I think you have some great perspective. Why don't you write a few more blogs? Like he was encouraging me to do little things. And then when I didn't post it, he called me up. He was so funny. I'm wondering why you haven't posted your website. That was that was a fear space for me because I'm like, once I put myself out there, I put myself out there. And I was nervous about that. And your pictures on it, it's who you are. It just felt really out there to me. And I posted it on LinkedIn and on Facebook, totally anxious about it. And got so many clients from that first post that forgetting I had this 32-year network. I worked with primarily PhDs and postdocs who are now all mid-career or, in executive levels. and they responded so rapidly. The University of Michigan, I worked here for years, and someone I knew had this coaching they were starting through a grant, all these sort of things that I was not putting myself out there for. And once I did, and I didn't like wildly put myself out there, I just was honest and said, here, I'm starting a business. This is what matters to me. I'd love to work with you. I told you before we got on that I used to say things like, you can love your Mondays again, like really wanting people to think about, especially coming out of the pandemic, people were feeling kind of down about work. So yeah, there's these moments where you don't expect things to happen. You don't expect, yeah. And when you let go of what everyone else thinks, for me, that becomes really magical, because I think there's this sort of construct of how you should do things. And once you stop worrying about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
it happens in a lot of spaces. Every time I connect with another person and I tell them what my goals are, and I speak from my truth space, I end up getting more clients. It just has happened. So I believe it.
What I'm hearing is literally like putting yourself out there and not attaching yourself too much to what's going to come from there, but just like leaving it to the universe, I guess, from there, then seeing whatever comes your way.
Yeah, that's a perfect summary. Don't attach to it. Someone
Yeah.
was asking the promotional mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I work with physicians a lot with this. We do this coaching academy, and this idea that there's some people have preventative mindset. So if you're coaching someone with a preventive mindset and you're saying, oh, look at all these possibilities. I mean, meaning if you're coaching from if you're mentoring someone, someone who's got a preventative mindset feels anxious because they're looking for where are the mistakes that could happen. But a promotional mindset is really looking at what's a possibility, it's a growth mindset. And so, I think you can nurture a promotional mindset in the same way you can a growth mindset, where you see possibilities, where you don't see this as being the end of the story, but the middle of the story, so that there's still actions to take. I think that just really, and I don't mean promotional in the marketing sense. I mean, in this sort of sense of possibilities. And I think you put it beautifully. Don't attach to the outcomes. I mean, I have a strategy document. I have strategic goals. I decided when I started my business to treat that I was a good leader, and I'd done well because I had some things I'd learned to do over time. They weren't necessarily natural to me to sit down and do strategic priorities and goals. But I did that. And then I did, objectives from that, and I did measurable objectives, and I did them just in 3-month spurts. Like, what do I want to happen in the next 3 months? What are my strategic goals for the next 3 months? I used to think 3-5 years out, I used to do these longer, and then I would review them again. So, but I held them lightly. I think what was so much fun about having my own business, I didn't have 100 people telling me they didn't like what word I used here or there. When you're doing that in work, and a lot of people give you their opinion. But I also recognized, oh, this one didn't work out. That's okay. Like, I was just not super attached. What I was really trying to do was create momentum for myself, and get up every day and feel like I was making progress. And so, and not say I was going to do something and then not do it all the time. So
I really like two things that you said, Paula. One, about anything that we do is in the end of it all, right? Take it as it's the middle, and then there is more that you can add on to, because I think the end kind of makes things very like final, and that makes it very scary, and it becomes a this or a that.
right.
But I think when it's in the middle, it's like it's just the middle, right? So it doesn't define anything completely. There's always scope for course correction, and it kind of lightens the stakes a little, right? It makes you feel like, oh, and I really like the word you use, which is momentum, right? You said just to be in the momentum. So I think that's important, because a lot of times when you make things final and when things don't go the way that you want them to go, it becomes very difficult to then pick yourself up again and be in that momentum. But when it's in the middle, there's always that mindset somewhere, right? That it could go this way, it could go that way, we'll see where it goes. So it becomes more exploratory, and the exploration kind of, I think, sets in that momentum for a person. Or I think that's what I am learning from you as you shared how you operated.
Yeah, I'm learning from you too, and how you're describing it. I love that. That's exactly it. Even when I'm working with clients, I have again, number of clients who have very big things they're working on, particularly in healthcare. And there's so much going on right now in healthcare. And so we really sit down and think about the world's going to be what it's going to be, and healthcare is going to be what it's going to be. And you can't, some of my clients are always trying to control their environment. And I'm like, yeah, the environment you can't control very much. How about let's not control ourselves, but let's understand ourselves and be like agile in that process. And that's that kind of promotional mindset. So how do you know who you are and what guides you in your thinking? One of the other things I do a lot with my clients is, what are your guiding principles? What are your guiding principles for work? What are your guiding principles when you walk into that meeting? So they know who they are there. They can't control all the things that are going to happen, but they know they're standing in the space they want to stand in. Helping people just get deep understanding of who they are and be present in this space in the way that they are. And so I really have to be thoughtful about a coaching mindset when I do this, because I know that I'm not a cheerleader or an advocate as a coach. So you want to be thoughtful about not like falling into that space. But I really do partner with people in that spot of, who is your best self? And how are you showing up in that space as your best self? And it's not just, and you have to understand, then you have to set up some structure for yourself to understand what that is. And so the guiding principles, some of my clients have really taken that, where they have a list of guiding principles and they'll say, this is not in line with my guiding principle. And, that enables them to get a deep understanding of how to get through those moments that feel like they might be, not the best moments for them. And so, yeah, values, guiding principles. I mean, these are all things that I think lead to that joy and abundance for a person, because they know who they want to be.
That's very, very powerful, because even as you said it, I was like, yeah, what are my guiding principles? Like, what is it that I follow or would like to follow, and
Yeah.
maybe it requires a little bit more reflective thought. But I think for our audience as well, like if you need a minute, maybe just to think through it, like please do take that time out for yourself, because I think it kind of helps you to also understand who you are and kind of gauge, right? Like how you're growing. And the parameters don't become things that are outside of you, but this is who I want to be. This is who I was actually. So then what's the next step I want to take for another time when a similar situation arises? So you actually feel like you are in control, and you know who you are, and you're trying to bring your best self forward. So, you don't start comparing, I think, yourself with others and like, oh, this colleague was good at this, or I need to get better than this. It doesn't matter, right? Because those outside factors aren't going to control, or they're going to obviously make you unhappy, right? Like I think at an intellectual level, we do know that. So I think this kind of internally helps you to look at yourself and value yourself as well, right? Like, hey, this is what I value. This is what I can bring into this space. And it's not really about competition or putting yourself out there, but being yourself.
Yeah. And being who you are. You're just reminding me of a client I had who had really operated in their guiding principles so well. And at the end of a meeting where people had been really difficult with the person, and the person stood up for themselves and talked through, at the end, someone came up and said to them, I really, really appreciate you, and I wonder if I could hug you. And they said, no. And I left. They said, I'm just not a hugger, and that's not on my list. And I just thought, it was like this moment of realizing this person was really setting boundaries of who they were. And I thought, you really don't, it isn't all about being positive and upbeat. It's about being in this world the way you want to be in this world, and allowing work to be an expression of that for yourself. And, we show up to work and we have things to deliver there. It's not like work can accommodate us completely, but the more we have a sense of who we are, the more productive we're going to be in that setting. And then also with my clients, if you find yourself, like there's this whole, I don't know how popular this is broadly, but certainly in the US, we do a lot of job crafting. There's even classes on job crafting, how you shape your job to fit who you are. And my feeling is, if you're crafting your job a lot and contorting yourself a lot for, or trying to make a job who you are, and you're struggling with a lot, it's probably not the right job. Like There's only
Yeah.
so much we can job craft. So knowing who you are helps you understand how do I connect, make this connection in this way that's meaningful. And I mean, some people sometimes just have to do a job and they don't have a choice. And so job crafting can be really valuable. But then sometimes knowing who you are can make sure that the job you align yourself with doesn't require that level of crafting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking as you're sharing also this pressure that we sometimes build up, right? To be something, or it just like kind of goes away, right? Like you don't have to carry all that pressure, and for what?
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. For what? And it's funny because I work in a university setting that's a very high research setting. The people who talk to me about things, I'll say, whose rule is that? Or they're like, I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to be judged on this. I'm like, who's in the jury? Let me know who's sitting on that jury, because it's really, everyone has this sort of contrived sense of what things need to be. Someone said,
Yeah, I think a
having
lot
a
of
mission,
fear.
doing things meaningful. I just want to catch that one real quick. Putting your best self is everything you do. I do think it's important to have a mission.
Yeah.
To think about this very deeply. I have a mission where I say to people sort of, and it's on my LinkedIn, connect who you are with what you do. It's what I do. But my vision and mission are this: make work a happy place, one person at a time. That's my vision. I think I'm going to impact the world one person at a time. If you're a coach who does individual coaching versus team coaching, I'm not a team coaching person. I'm an individual coach. And my mission is do what I love so my clients can love what they do. And I don't like put that out there. It's just how I drive what I do every day. And so before I start and I meditate, and I think a friend of mine told me to do this, and it helps to think, what's my intention before I start? And it's to really help people connect to who they are and love what they do. And when I can be in that space, I get the privilege of working with them and learn who they are. Someone else put a longer question there.
We have just a
Oh, this
minute.
is a great question. I'm a little curious about guiding principles. Don't sometimes clients get a little overwhelmed with a very large question, like what are your guiding principles at work? How often do we think about this? How much deep thinking will the client be ready to dig in? I think this is a great coach who's asking this question. Meet the client where they are. And I work with one of my clients who the 3 areas I work the most in are policy, government, and healthcare. One of my policy clients, who was a consultant, when she was done, we swapped
Mm.
businesses for a while. I said, I'll give you a free coaching if you sit with me and talk through the process you did with me, so you can help me see clearer what my coaching process is. And one of the things she said was that I help mission-driven, high-achieving people who are 5 steps from burnout and 2 steps from quiet quitting, is what she said. You said, those are the people who come to you. And she's right. A lot of people come to me and they're really high-achieving. They've just gotten big roles, but they're feeling disconnected. And so the reason I say that is some of those people are very ready to think on the level of guiding principles. They're like, they snap that up. And I will also say, I do not have a coaching process that is step 1, we do this, step 2, we do this, because I really think that would be a disservice. It's not how coaching is. It's not how I was trained in Coacharia. It's really meeting the client where they are. So if I'm working with a client and it becomes clear that guiding principles might be supportive of them, it will come from the client, not from me. The client was the one who came up with the idea of, I need some guiding structures. And we came up with the term guiding principles. So sometimes I'll say to a client who seems ready for it, may make a suggestion. One of my other clients designed this idea of guiding principles. Does that sound like something you might be interested in thinking about? And again, usually people are ready for that when we bring it up. I have some clients, if I said that, they'd probably be like, I actually, just the other day, I made a suggestion for a technique that another client gave me. And that client said to me, yeah, that sounds like a bad idea. And I was like, that's coaching. And I was like, we hold it loosely as our coaching, competencies tell us. We don't attach to our own, things. So yeah, I think that's very right.
Wow.
What
It's
happens
been
if the answer comes on top of mind to this question? Wait, what happens if the answers are what comes on the top of their mind to this question? So I think what you're asking is they aren't well thought out. Is that what you're thinking? How do you read that, Kiva?
um
Yes. Okay. I love this chat box. It's so funny to me. Yes. So, as any coaching, you meet what clients present to you is they're in the driver's seat. So if someone were to present to me, I'm thinking of a client I have right now who I could imagine would come up with some pretty, if they were to say, I need some more, I'm just doing this, I might not even call it guiding principles. I might say, do we want to work on some things that are boundaries you want to set at work that are important to you? And people come up sometimes with where they are. So tell me more about that, what you came up with, that guiding principle, that boundary. How does that serve you? Tell me, I think you would do as any coaching situation, you would dig deeper. You would help them determine, is this the right boundary? Is this the right principle? Is this the right structure for me? And people are where they are, I might think I can think of a way more brilliant one than that, but they're not going to apply the one that I think of. They're going to apply the one that they think of. And if anything I've learned from my coach training and really from the ICF sort of structure is that clients have their own answers. And I have found early in my coaching, you asked me an early question and I didn't think of this. Now that we've talked a little more, I've thought of it. Struggles I had, I was in a job that was pretty directing as a assistant dean. And I had to come up with a lot of ideas, people that was expected of me. And so sometimes when I was working with clients who didn't feel they were I didn't feel they were where they needed to be, or I thought, oh, if they could just see this, they would be in a better spot. A couple of them I just felt like I wasn't working well with. And one of my supervisors said to me, do you believe this person is capable? And it was a really, really powerful question to have them ask me, because I realized, no, I don't. And that's what I'm doing. It's a cue to me that I'm trying to solve for them because I don't think they can solve for themselves. And I've learned so much from that moment. Whenever I feel myself get into a solution mode or even a judgy mode, like this isn't a good answer, that I'm trying to solve for a client I don't think is capable. And then I'm not showing up as a coach.
Yeah. George has shared something here. Joseph Campbell said, people struggle for purpose more than meaning. What they are seeking is the experience of being alive. I want to work to help them find that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you put that on your website and people would flock to it, I will tell you, if that's the work you want to do, put that out there. And I have found that clients come to me and say, I read your website and I feel like I know you. And I used to think people were going to come back and say, that sounds cheesy, like I said. And I know when I get clients who aren't in. So if that's the zone that you're in, is making meaning, which I would think most coaches are, but sometimes people are in a much different space with the people they work with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Purpose. I think that is true. The experience of being alive. Oh, I love that. Just, it's getting, I live in a very cold state and it's starting to get warm here. And I walked into my office. I'm in my home office now, but I have an office in town. And I walked into it and I sat down and did a gratitude. It was a beautiful sunny day. I did a gratitude meditation and it was that feeling of being alive. And I realized when you sit sometimes, and sometimes you're just sitting and it's practice, and other times you sit and you are present. And that feeling of being alive is really, and sometimes that feeling of alive isn't a pleasant feeling, but it's that you are alive and you're happy to be feeling all the things you're feeling.
We're almost coming to the end of our webinar. I still have one question on my mind, but if the audience has something that they want to ask Paula, then the chat box is open to you. So feel free to ask your questions. Until any question comes up, I'll ask my question. Oh, okay, we already have one, so we'll go ahead with this. So Raghu Raman is saying, it's so George, when you say being alive, does it include having a feeling of being in charge? So George, I think that's for you.
Yeah, you guys have to get together and chat about that.
Yes.
It's an interesting, that would be a great coaching question to explore what that means to someone. Yeah. Both being alive and being in charge, what both of those things mean.
Yeah. Okay. waiting to hear from others. Mark has a question. What support or resources do you give your clients if they are having trouble articulating their core values?
So I have a values worksheet that we use. So it's just a basic thing, but it's sort of give them a way to think about values and gives them words to put to that. I also do a lot of assessments with some of the clients, depending on I work on some benches of people who have some pretty strong assessment tools. So helping people get some perspective on who they are. I mean, I always say we think through our head, our heart, and our gut. And sometimes it's getting people to bring some of the things they're feeling to their head, they can articulate it. Oh yeah, we
Yeah. Yami, we've touched upon the promotional mindset question. There's a question about what assessments do you use?
I use a variety of them. I work with a colleague. We use a lot of DISC, and we're working with people who are like, section leaders in hospitals and nursing directors and things like that. And so we use a lot of DISC, emotional intelligence, those sort of things are the assessments. I also use a leadership assessment called the 6 Domains of Leadership, which is through Duke University. So it really depends on what bench I'm on, which assessments I'm using.
Yeah. Great. Any more questions from the participants? So I'll ask my question since we have a few more minutes. So Paula, we spoke a lot about the different things that you've incorporated, right? Like an abundant mindset or like a particular way of operating, creating a structure. I want to know, like, what are things that you've left behind or you've said a no to in order to build this happiness for yourself?
Oh gosh, this is a good thing. You're helping me look at like both sides of the thing. I think I left behind this sort of sense of status, and it's hard to even say it because it doesn't feel like it's meaningful to me, but I remember walking away from a job that had a lot of status and leaving that behind. I walked away from that feels like the biggest thing, like, and also a structure that gave me an easier time of things, like, I do my billing. I walked away from a lot of support structures that existed. That's why I've had to sort of recreate them. I walked away from caring what people think of me. I mean that I'm a helper on the Enneagram. If anyone does, I do the Enneagram, but that's another assessment. I'm always the person who has that sort of core of feeling like, and so I understand why people sometimes experience this, that you have to earn love. And so, it's a very vulnerable thing to say, but I walked away from feeling that like I had to earn people's regard to feel productive at what I do. And when you're in a structure where where promotions are a part of it and people look at you and give you feedback all the time, like I just walked away from that and said that that's not productive for me anymore. I really want to be present for other people. And so, yeah, they don't feel like bad things to walk away from. They feel like good things.
Beautiful. Thank you, Paula, for sharing all of this with us today and for being so vulnerable with all that you've experienced. And I'm sure our audience today, as we saw, so many comments and questions have gained a lot. As we close out, would be lovely to just hear maybe a takeaway from the participants, anything that you're carrying with yourself after this session today. So it would be lovely to hear from you. But Paula, it's been amazing to hear all about your journey, and you are such an inspiring person. And I think throughout you've, like you said, right, you brought in that joy and happiness into the space as well. So I feel so good that we had this conversation today. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you. I do too. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and talking to you, Kiva. You've helped me think more deeply about who I am. And the questions, seriously, in the chat were beautiful, or the comments.
Beautiful questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say to my clients when I'm done, and I'll say this to all of you, I'm a phone a friend. Like you can contact me very much if you want to. Actually, I'll put my
Yes, please do, Paula. If anybody wants to connect with Paula, Paula, are you on Coach Nook as well? Are you there
I
already?
am on Coach Nook, yep.
So you might, if you are on Coach Nook, you might be able to find her there as well, or on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm putting in my website and my email.
Perfect.
I'm like, if people are stuck, I always feel like people are always like, oh, I'm so sorry to take up your time. I never feel that way. I feel like, our time is equally valuable, and I gain so much from hearing other people's story. And community is, Coacharya really changed my life. And the community it connected me with has really sustained me, and imagine it will for years to come. So happy to connect with people in this community.
Thank you so much, Paula, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And do connect with Paula and stay in touch with us. And thank you so much once again, Paula, for this refreshing conversation. I'm feeling really, leaving the conversation feeling really charged up and really thinking a lot about the questions that we discussed. So
Me too. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. So we'll sign off for today. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye.